I did want to test something with the sharing screen before we go.
Yeah, it says all participants can share already, so I don't have to change that.
Cool. Just trying to think how I'm going to read my slide and share this at the same time. Because now I'm sharing that, but now I can't read it. Read anything else on my computer. I mean, I have it printed out too. What do you think? Is it weird? Is it like obvious and weird if I'm just like reading this paper down here?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay. Maybe that will be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for letting me test it. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, I guess when I do that, I'll probably put the, are you using one monitor or two?
Just one.
Okay.
Got a little baby computer. Because most of the time I'm in my lab and not using it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I have to tell you guys what I did. So I have my laptop directly in front of me. My remarks are there so I can, and then it looks like I'm looking at everyone. Hopefully I'm pretty good at but what I was going to do, and I have it behind me, I have a 42-inch TV monitor that I started using for my spreadsheets.
Wow.
So is that not, and my daughter, spreadsheet, she came and she's like, oh my gosh, that's the most overwhelming spreadsheet I've seen in my entire life. And so, and she of course she had to capture it and put it on some social media platform so that her mom was crazy. But like a tiny little laptop off to the side. I was thinking I was going to use it as my teleprompter, but then I realized if I'm reading, your eyes move too far. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So I have right now my giant, but we're so used to it, right? Everyone's eyes go somewhere where they don't belong. It's hard for us to always just be here, in that space. So I was playing with it. And if I put your pictures and your eyes right above my camera on my laptop with the screen that's in the back, then I think it looks like I'm looking at all of you. But then I have to remember where to move my mouse to get the things. But yeah, it's a whole new system, right? Because if we were standing at if we were standing at a lectern and you had your remarks there, then you can look up when you want to, and then you can look down, and it just feels more natural. And now we're trying to make this be the new natural, and it's fun. So
sounds like a good setup.
I said though that, did you guys watch any of the COVID briefings from Provost Kangalaris and others? Did you guys see any of those COVID briefings?
No, I didn't watch them.
So if you know Provost Kangalaris, he spoke at the my book release party, and when we dedicated the women's statue, and he spoke, and then I have to speak after him, and it's the most intimidating thing ever because he's so polished and such an eloquent speaker, and people will write him speeches and he will just throw them to the side and talk, and just bring everyone together, and it's beautiful. And so, but with the COVID briefings, he's had to stick to the script in front of him, and it's not him, right? It just doesn't feel like him. So I'm you know what? I'm okay on Zoom. It's going to be good.
And I have a logistical question. Have you spotlighted anyone yet? Or
do you want me to?
I mean, we can do it later too.
Do I just push spotlight for everyone?
Yeah, I think so.
You want me to do it now? I'm doing it now. Do you want Nancy to be spotlighted right now?
Maybe not now.
Okay.
Maybe I don't have to be
Yeah.
spotlighted right now either.
Are you spotlighting me?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I'll wait and spotlight right
You need
when
to
we.
spotlight yourself. Yeah, I think
I
so.
know. I'm going to spotlight everyone once, maybe right at 9. I'll spotlight me and then I'll spotlight Angie.
Sounds good. This has all been an experiment trying to figure out how to do this virtually.
No, I'm impressed. You guys, I really am sincere when I say you guys have done a wonderful job at the communication, and Gather Town is a great way, I think, to do this, and just the meandering through and talking with people was nice this morning. It's much better than just randomly going in Zoom rooms at different times. So it gives it a cohesive feel.
Yeah.
Have you guys used that other places? Like, I know some people were using it for office hours. Have you guys, or like study halls and other things, you guys TAing any classes and using it?
I'm not, but my advisor really likes GatherTown. So she created a few spaces for my department and then my group. And so we've been using it a lot for that.
I hope everyone can hear me.
We can hear
If
it
you
too.
haven't already, please make your way to the keynote auditorium and press X to enter the Zoom call so we can start our first speaker.
I didn't realize we could hear that in here too. That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Good to know.
The only thing missing is the chatter in the auditorium.
Yeah.
I know, maybe we should be playing music or something.
Unofficial start, yep.
Like the National Sweet Conference with their pump up music.
I do have to say, I am wearing my weSTEM shirt. Nice job to the graphic designer. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah, that was my cousin. She is an industrial designer, so I reached out to her to kind of put our thoughts into action and make a shirt look like an engineer didn't design it.
Very good. It doesn't have tons of text on it, no white space.
Yep.
No graphs.
Yeah.
Calculations.
Okay, I think I'll give it like 1 more minute and then we can get started. Okay, so we're going to get started this morning. So welcome to the 9th annual weSTEM conference and our first virtual conference. For those of you who weren't able to attend last night, my name is Hannah Lohman and I'm a 5th year graduate student at the University of Illinois in the Environmental Engineering program. So before we begin, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. So we would like you to keep your video on if you're comfortable having your video on. We think that it would be make the conference feel a little bit more natural if everyone has their videos on. And then we would also like you to stay muted unless asking a question during the Q&A time. I have the distinct honor and privilege to be the director of the 2021 Virtual weSTEM Conference. weSTEM 2021 is hosted by GradSwe, the Graduate Society of Women Engineers. GradSwe was started here in 2012 here at the University of Illinois with the mission to promote diversity in science and engineering. At GradSwe, we support students in their graduate education and help prepare them for their future careers. I would like to welcome all of our speakers for generously donating their time to attend the conference. I think I can speak for everyone and say that we're really looking forward to hearing your experiences today. I would also like to welcome the students joining us from the University of Illinois and 14 other top universities across the country. Typically, we can only invite 10 non-Illinois students to attend the conference, but since we're virtual this year, we have 45 students attending from 14 universities across the country, including the University of Illinois at Chicago, Illinois Institute of Technology, Northwestern University, University of Wisconsin-Madison, University of Michigan, University of Iowa, University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Purdue University, University of Kentucky, Georgia Tech, University of Colorado Boulder, UCLA, and Berkeley. I would also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. It hasn't been easy to fundraise during a global pandemic, but GradSwe and weSTEM have received much support and acclaim from entities within the University of Illinois, including the College of Engineering, and 15 departments in STEM fields across campus. We would also like to thank our corporate sponsors, Caterpillar, Exponent, and Ramble, for their generous financial contributions and participation in the weSTEM conference. Some representatives from their companies are here today, so be sure to check out their company booths in the Lunch and Networking Lounge. As the director, I'm the one standing or sitting here in front of you, bragging about this amazing event, but this event would not have been possible without the incredibly talented, committed, and hardworking people on the weSTEM committee. We have Kathleen Ullman, our speaker coordinator. She was responsible for finding potential speakers and coordinating all logistics with them. Zainab Ayla, attendee relations coordinator. She was responsible for the logistics of all the attendees and planning last night's networking reception icebreaker. Juhitha Konduru, our logistics coordinator, helped select the the conference platform that we're on today, and also prepared that super helpful instruction guide. Laura Gray, publicity coordinator, put together our entire website, program, and all of the other digital media you see here today. And last but not least, Tangela Jesman and Apurva Godbul are our social media coordinators, and over the last few months have made amazing posts about the speakers coming to weSTEM and advertised the event across campus. If anyone has any questions about today's activities or general questions about GradSwe, please direct them to anyone on the weSTEM committee or any of the other volunteers. weSTEM committee members have the word weSTEM in front of their name on the GatherTown platform, and conference volunteers have the letter V in front of their name for volunteer. Finally, please share your experiences and pictures on Twitter and Instagram using the weSTEM 2021 hashtag or tweeting us at GradSwe Illinois. And so now to start off our event, Angie Wolters is here to give the weSTEM 2021 welcome address. Angie currently serves as the Director of Women in Engineering program for the University of Illinois. She is a graduate from the Granger College of Engineering at the University of Illinois and holds bachelor's and master's degrees in civil engineering and is a licensed professional engineer. Following graduation, she worked over 10 years as an engineer with applied pavement technology in Urbana, Illinois. In 2012, she returned to the university where she has been involved in a number of women-focused endeavors, including leading women-focused engineering camps, developing a leadership program for women engineering students, co-authoring Women and Ideas in Engineering, which highlights the accomplishments of women engineers at the University of Illinois, and serving on the committee responsible for the artist selection and overall creation and placement of the quintessential engineering statue, which celebrates women engineers. She loves working to support all women, but has a special place in her heart for advising and supporting college students through their STEM journey. Please join me in welcoming Angie to give the weSTEM welcome address.
Thank you, Hannah. And good morning, everyone. It is really my pleasure to welcome you to the start of weSTEM 2021. As Hannah mentioned, I'm Nancy Walters, and I serve as the director of the Women in Engineering program here at the University of Illinois. Working in our undergraduate programs office in the Granger College of Engineering, I connect primarily with undergrads, but have the opportunity to use my civil engineering graduate school experience to link current undergrads to opportunities of grad school and beyond. But I'm just one advisor serving nearly 2,000 undergraduate women in Granger Engineering. So that's why conferences such as weSTEM are so important to help facilitate the connections for undergrads to graduate school opportunities, but also for graduate students to connect to successful career paths, and for STEM professionals to connect with each other and current students. And over the 9 years of this conference, I've seen the impact that Grad Suite at Illinois has had in connecting current and aspiring STEM leaders through this event. So I find it beautiful to see the choice of this year's organizers to focus on the conference theme of We Rise by Lifting Others, as I've witnessed firsthand how this conference has done just that over the course of its existence. So, and as we head through 2021, this theme seems more critical than ever as we crave to find ways to connect on a personal level with each other, given our physical separation. So as you keep the conference theme of We Rise by Lifting Others in mind as you move through your day, I'd also like to share with you this connected quote from Oprah Winfrey. Hopefully you guys can all see this. Surround yourself with only people who are going to lift you higher. I think this quote speaks volumes this morning as we want to take and I want to take some time to kind of dive into this and think about ways to help us implement this quote in our lives today and really every day. So the first to do is to find your people. So those of you like me who like crossing things off your to-do list, you can write this down right now and strike through it because you've already taken the first step in finding your people by joining this wonderful group this morning. And the second step to implementing this quote is to take inventory of the people you spend the most time with. Motivational speaker Jim Rohn is attributed to saying you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And at this time, I ask all of you to take a moment to answer that question. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with, whether that be at work, at home, or even on social media? Who are those people who you have the most interaction with? And ultimately, who are the people who have the most influence over you? So I invite you to take a moment. Grab a piece of paper, a Post-it note. You've got your computer in front of you, jot it down on another screen or pull out your phone and write down those 5 people that come to mind. And so I'll give you a second as you pull out those instruments and you go ahead and you put those names down. And as you're finishing that list, and as you're putting that list together, I want you to ask yourself another question. Who are the people on that list who lift you higher? As you think about that question, I do want to make an important note that lifting you higher isn't just supporting your every move. Colleagues, friends, family who speak the truth to you in a way that requires you to be aware of it are also often lifting you higher. So now, as you look at your list, circle or highlight those names of those that lift you higher. These are those people who not only cheer you on, but also speak the truth. I'm hopeful that you're able to highlight all the names on your list. If you are, really take a second to consider the fact of the blessing and the gift that is. But now, your next to do. Pick one person from that list that you've highlighted, that list of people who lift you higher, and answer this important question. What is one specific way that the person you identified has lifted you higher? Search for that beautiful, wonderful, stuck in your memory moment of kindness and support that they have shown you, and pick one that jumps out to you. So as you think about that uplifting moment, I invite you to use the chat feature to share that memory with the group. But I ask you to type in your memory into the chat, but don't hit enter yet. I'm going to give you all a moment to get it written, and then we're all going to actually hit enter on my count of 3 so that all the responses come in at once. So as you're typing, as you're thinking about this moment that you've been lifted higher, I want to share an example of a way that I was lifted higher. Hannah mentioned that I co-authored a book. And so through that process, I had the support of a colleague, Laura Hahn, who served as my collaborator and who helped me stretch beyond my own comfort zone and co-author a book. Remember, I'm an engineer by training, right? So she was an inspiration to me, and she was someone that lifted me higher. So hopefully this is giving you a moment to get your thoughts down into the chat feature. I'll give you a few more seconds to finish up your thoughts. And then on my count of 3, we'll go ahead and have all of you enter your thoughts, and we can have these beautiful, uplifting memories come rolling in, okay? So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go ahead and hit enter. Oh my goodness. So many wonderful things being shared. Roommates lifting you higher, people inspiring you in the lab, encouraging you to apply for awards, all these beautiful, beautiful ways that we've been lifted up by others. So, as we look at this, right, it's almost overwhelming, but I invite you to scroll through and let these personal reflections, your own and those of others, settle in our hearts and minds today, and use this as a catalyst for the ways you interact with each other, not only today, but every day. And I ask you to remember this one last takeaway, that at any moment you have that ability to lift someone else up. So my last to do for my remarks today is that I ask you to take what you recorded, what you wrote down, and reach out, if you can, to that person who gave you that moment, and let them know today what that moment meant to you, right? Now you can return the favor and lift them up with that memory. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and attention. It was a pleasure being with you here this morning, and hopefully I have a chance to see you throughout the day in the conference. But I wish you a wonderful rest of your day at weSTEM 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie, for your inspiring words. I know I'm going to reach out to the person that I was thinking about and thank them for everything they've done for me. And now Kathleen, our speaker coordinator, will introduce this morning's keynote speaker.
Good morning, everyone. As Hannah said, my name is Kathleen Ullman. I'm a 4th-year doctorate student in the physics department here at the University of Illinois. It is my absolute honor to be this year's speaker coordinator. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know all of our speakers this year, and I hope you as participants will get to experience the same joy speaking with them today at this conference. It is my privilege to now introduce our keynote speaker, Nancy Martin. Nancy's passion is creating the best work environment for technologists around the world. She is the founder of Nancy R. Martin Consulting, where she develops and coaches technical leaders to grow them into thoughtful people leaders. Nancy is a retired executive from General Electric and most recently led technical education for the company. During her 35-year GE career, she held 17 jobs, mostly in engineering leadership, and was the head of the Edison Engineering program, an entry-level program for 1,000 engineers and scientists around the globe. She was proud of all of her program members and especially pleased to have hired a gender-balanced workforce into STEM roles for 3 consecutive years. She is particularly passionate about growing and advocating for female leaders and university students in technology. She has 2 children, Jill and Jeff, and is married to a very supportive husband, Dave. Nancy's role models growing up were her mother, who was unconditionally supportive, and her math teacher, Mr. Arnold, who instilled a love of math when it wasn't cool for girls to like math, and who supported her dreams of furthering her education in a town where less than 20% attended college. Her fictional role model is Cindy Lou who Nancy believes played an essential role in bringing out the Grinch's humanity. She has undergraduate degrees in mathematics from Clarkson University and a graduate degree in electrical engineering from Syracuse University. She is a 2018 recipient of the Distinguished Career Award for the Capital Region's Woman of Excellence. She is an emoticon enthusiast, and her hobbies include biking, walking, and doing the laundry. Please give a warm welcome to Nancy.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen now. Is that working?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. There we go. Okay, you're going to have to help me with the chat session, I think. Let me just put up chat. Sorry. Okay, terrific. So hi, everybody. I first want to acknowledge that this is kind of a weird topic, right? It's in STEM, in math. I went into math because there was a right or wrong answer. You know, we're all about perfection. But for good reason, right? We don't want planes to fall out of the sky. We don't want cars to drive off the road. We clearly don't want a power outage during your surgery. But we can have perfect products without having perfect people. So we put systems and processes in place, of course, to catch our mistakes. So what we want to do is allow people to be people. So this is not a conversation about a perfect product. This is about us being human beings. So first we have to start with, do we have any perfectionists here? So this isn't always an interesting question for this type of audience. The answer, of course, is probably yes. We have a lot of high achievers, and you would think it would be obvious. But some of you are out there saying, I'm not a perfectionist because I'm not perfect yet. I just want to remind you that the definition of perfectionism is striving for perfection, not actually achieving it. So, and in full disclosure, I'm old enough now to be a recovering perfectionist. I don't know that I'll ever be well, but I'm trying my very best. So let's just kind of see, just to baseline this, do we have any perfectionist tendencies? So let's take a couple of quick quizzes here. One, for those of you that have one of these, if you saw this at the end of the day, would you be happy? If you saw this at the end of the day, would you be happy? If you saw this at the end of the day, would you be happy? Or would you decide that only this kind of thing is actually possible? Now, here's a real test. If you saw this and it was 11 o'clock at night, would you do what I do, which is dance around in the bathroom until I can close the rings? And then my husband walks in, rolls his eyes, and then turns around. Now, I always thought I was crazy. It turns out there are some of you like me. Okay, cleaning. Are you okay with this before you go to bed? Or do you at least have to do your dishes? Or do they all have to be put away? School, this is a good one for you. Only an A+ will do. B will really bum you out. Or C, kind of the end of the world. So just to kind of, you're not necessarily a perfectionist in all of your life, but what does that mean? So for some of you that are saying, well, maybe I have some of these tendencies. Well, how did we get here? Okay, so let's harken back to kindergarten for me. So I was, taking a math test, and I got 100. So I brought it home, and it went on the refrigerator. So my mom put it there. And then I brought my spelling test home. I don't know about the rest of you, but spelling is absolutely not my strong point. I remember I was proud of my spelling test. I only got one wrong. It was shirt. I forgot a letter. But I brought that home and it didn't go on the refrigerator. So, my mom, so then you start to realize, hey, wait a minute, getting 100 feels good and it's rewarded. And then getting a 90 or an 80 or anything less is not. Now, by the way, you can have two kids in the same family, one that's a perfectionist and one that definitely doesn't look that way. So just so you know, I might try to get 100, but if I have a sibling that says, you know what, I just can't get 100, and then they give up, right? And so you can have families where you have highly successful people and people that, potentially struggle quite a bit. But then you move on. Okay, so now you're in junior high and you know that you have to do really well on your tests because you want to get into honors classes in high school. And in high school, basically you have to finish high school by the time you're a junior and take all college credits in your senior year and get all A's and make sure you get in the best college. And then you get into a great college like University of Illinois. And then you have to still do really well so that you can go to graduate school and the best graduate school, or you get the best jobs, right? And so all well and good in essence, but a whole bunch of pressure, which I'm sure many of you are feeling. So perfectionism is actually quite measurable. As a matter of fact, you take a test. I take a test, I get 100, I'm perfect. I take a test, I get an 80, I'm not. So it's very, it's very cut and dry, as it turns out. And then you become a full-blown adult. You're going to go out in the workplace or in graduate studies, which I think is probably much more, it looks a little bit more like the real world because there's not necessarily tests. So, what happens then? Okay, well, here's the thing. You can be perfect on a lot more than just school. So now I can have the perfect house and the perfect lawn. I can have the perfect hair. I can have the perfect clothes, the perfect weight, the perfect food. I have to eat certainly all of my fruits and vegetables, and they do have to be organic, of course. And whatever I do has to be recyclable. I have to have perfect makeup, and I'm going to be the perfect mom, and I'm going to have the perfect job. So all of a sudden you're inundated with all of these things. And, but it's not just the volume. I mean, the volume can certainly increase. So you can take this perfectionism and blow it up as big as you'd like. But here's the real issue. At some point, perfection looks different to different people. So what does that mean? You're being judged by people who have different filters. So it's not enough to do your job. It's even how you do it. And so you'll start getting comments, particularly women, you're too talkative. But then you'll also get comments, you're too quiet. You're too confident. Oh, but you're not confident enough. That's the thing I always hear when I'm helping women, that they're hear from men. Oh, but you're not confident enough. Again, that's another conversation. You work too hard, you don't work hard enough. So in other words, you're going to get judged by two different people in two different ways. And this is where the tug comes in. You can't necessarily do something exactly the way two different people want you to do it. So now all of a sudden, not only do you have the magnitude of things to do, but you clearly are going to be judged differently. So how do you satisfy, somebody that likes analytical results and somebody who really wants you to be sociable at the same time? And the answer is, it's actually impossible. However, so the rules change, but you keep doing things exactly the same. And how do you always get yourself out of a jam? The way I always got myself out of jam: work harder, work more, and try to achieve this, unreachable goal. And what happens? It gets kind of depressing, right? So this is a cycle that gets worse and worse unless you try to intervene. Just a quick gratuitous example here, because I know my audience. I want to be a Gryffindor because that's where all the cool kids are. But my daughter Oh, I always have to call my daughter and go, what am I again? And she says, oh, Mom, you're such a Ravenclaw. And I'm like, I feel like that's not as cool. And she keeps telling me, you know, be true to yourself. But she loves being a Hufflepuff. And by the way, our dog is definitely a Slytherin, for sure. So the idea is if I'm a Hufflepuff and my boss is a Slytherin or my advisor is a Slytherin, my Slytherin advisor is going to want me to do things in a Slytherin way, when really all I want to be is a Hufflepuff. So let's kind of think about, how is perfectionism working for you now? Because it's good to reevaluate. You know, it does serve a purpose. We form habits for a reason, because they're useful to us and they have worked for us, and you get to be valedictorian. And so it all feels great. For me, at some point, perfectionism no longer worked. And so, you know, I got depressed, actually. I'm a very happy person, and I had to work through that and come out the other side and figure out, how am I going to change things? But it's a good, why don't we try to, you know, evaluate how things are going for you now? So here are some of the many things that can happen. Regrets. So if you suffer from perfectionism, you may not want to try new things. So here's an example. I was on a trip with colleagues, about 11 of them, and we were in Asia for two weeks. The very last night, we're at a dinner and we were celebrating, and I'm sure this is not a good idea, but we said, hey, what's your biggest regret? And so we shared those. The interesting thing I found out was people didn't share or didn't have regrets about what they did do. They had regrets about what they did not do. So it was the girl they didn't ask out in their math class. It was not trying out for the baseball team. And of course, me always sitting back trying to understand people. I'm like, why didn't you? Because I'm a little bit more on the impulsive side. So I'll ask, I'll get hurt, but then I'll rebound really fast. And they were afraid. And so, you know, this, if you think that you have to be perfect to try something and then you don't, I just want you to know that you could start building up some of these regrets. All work and no play. I have no idea when I became unfun. I mean, maybe I never was, but I feel like I was really fun. And then, you know, in my 40s, I was just working so many hours, so many days. And I had a motto, which I was proud of at the time, I'll share with you, but I'm not proud of at all anymore, because I would tell my kids, you do what you need to do first. And if you have time, then you do the things, you know, that you want to do. Super proud of that, because I was really getting crap done. But, you know, looking back, that could be bad. You can actually still lack self-confidence, you know, even though you keep achieving, because if you have one person telling you that you're not doing a good job or the way they want to do it, it can really impact your self-confidence. Fear, as I had mentioned, just fear of trying new things. Perfectionists tend to get in a rut and do the same things over and over again. And this overwhelmed feeling, you know, this to-do list, I'm a to-do list too. I think Angie had mentioned that. One of my favorite things of the day is crossing something off my to-do list. It's awesome. And then I switch between a to-do list, and I love Post-its, love them. I'm trying to do it online, doesn't have the same thing. I like taking a Post-it, writing something down, and then crunching it up and throwing out. And then this overwhelmed feeling, you know, this is when it just is really too much. It's not just your to-do list, but it just, where it comes crashing down on you. Now, here's the bad news. And this is something that we never want to admit, that our perfectionism actually makes other people miserable. And why is that? We can, well, first of all, we don't think, here's what I hear perfectionists say. They say, yes, but I only have high standards for myself. While I agree with most of that sentence, it's not the only thing you do. You actually have very high standards for everyone else, and you may not know it. But but perfectionists can put out an energy. So it may not even, it could be an unspoken kind of thing. It could be a eye roll. It could be a, okay, as soon as you turn around, I'm going to load the dishwasher the right way, for example. We have a rule in my house. I don't watch my husband load the dishwasher, although he's quite good at it. And then he doesn't watch me use a screwdriver. So it's a really good marriage enhancer. We can micromanage. You get, and I used to do this. So I would get a letter written by somebody that worked for me. And then I would rewrite it with perfect grammar. And, eventually I said to myself, okay, am I getting my point across? And if I am, or are they getting their point across? If they are, okay, leave it be. I mean, unless there's something big, right? And so eventually you start to say, I can't micromanage. By the way, who here likes to be micromanaged? And the answer is 0.0. So you have those tendencies. I work a lot with managers that tend to do that. I think mostly it's just foisting our own standards on other people. So there are some downsides to this. So you want to evaluate at this point or at any point during your life. Perfectionism's good. It got me here. Or you can debate whether it's good or not. I mean, I'm kind of happy I got to where I was. I'm grateful for my mini breakdown, and I'm grateful for being able to get back up. But it's good to kind of figure that out. Okay. So, and I want to also say one thing. Some of you may attach yourself to, yeah, maybe I'm a perfectionist, and maybe some of you truly aren't, and I'll accept that. There are some people that are and just can never let go for an entire lifetime. And I know people like that, and I feel bad for them, actually. And I can already tell, I was talking to one of your speakers who's going to have a great talk on this. And, she understands the value of imperfection. Okay, so what do we do about this? So I have 8 steps that we can take on this. Okay, the first one is you have to admit that this might be a problem for you. Okay, so first of all, let me say self-awareness, even though we're supposed to get it, it hurts. It hurts bad. I spend a lot of time trying to fool myself that I am a perfect person, or that I feel that I'm just wonderful all the time. And every once in a while I have some moments of clarity, mostly brought on by feedback, that, oh yeah, wow, that's not good. What am I doing? So that's a problem here. We also can start thinking about, wow, if I solve it now, then I have to admit all the past mistakes I've made because of this. What has happened because of what bad things? And if only I had changed earlier, this wouldn't have happened. Like I say, I think it's better to start now. The other thing is self-awareness is it's a brutal process. Let me explain how this really works. What do we always say? It's okay to make a mistake as long as you don't do it again. In my experience, that just is a stupid statement. I mean, this is blatantly wrong. We make mistakes, and then we make them again. Like I do like cookies. That's really my weak spot. I don't have any in my house right now, but if I go to a party, and when we used to have parties, eat a cookie, and then I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. But then I eat 2 or 3, and then I'll tell myself, hey, I'm never going to eat 7 cookies ever again. And I mean it. I really do. Until the next party, when I see raisin oatmeal cookies or Toll House, right? And then I eat another 7 cookies. So the reality is, this is 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And then you forget about it for a while, and then you have a really bad day, and you're like, oh geez, right, I forgot, this is a problem, I need to work on it. And as you age, which is okay, that's fine. That's kind of the imperfect way of getting more imperfect. But as long as you realize, hey, I got to get at least 1 step closer to where I want to be. So make a little bit of progress. Another thing, and then on this, my New Year's resolution 6 years ago was, I'll say, learn Spanish. Like, I'm not kidding. This was literally on Post-its, of course, on my wall. Learn Spanish, read 20 books. Because my kids had gone to college, by the way. If you have little children, I didn't read a book for 8 years. Write a book, run a half marathon in under 2 hours. That was up, right? So I still don't know Spanish. So that was 6 years ago. I can read it vaguely. I haven't written a book. I did write 100 pages, but you would think I'd write the 80 more, but no, not yet. I don't know. I did run a half marathon. I don't know if I ran under 2 hours, but the other thing I did was my daughter, she didn't train at all, but she wanted to run in Disney, which is the best. And I was in the second group. So I was, at least fast enough. So you can tell in Disney who the perfectionists are because it goes by stalls. So in the very beginning, you have your elite runners, and I put like a headband with Minnie, but in the very back, they're wearing full blown costumes, and they can barely move with big floppy feet. So that's the fun group. I'm the ridiculous group. So I'm in the back group with my daughter, and we had her picture taken every mile. So in other words, I don't know what my time was, but that was definitely the very best half marathon I ever ran. I did listen to 10 books on Audible. I've decided that I'm not a good reader. I'm a fantastic listener, so I'm playing to my strengths. When I pull up these accomplishments, and when I do accomplish things, I realize I wasn't very happy. And I did have a weird thing. I had some health problems. I had a couple of brain surgeries, really changed my outlook for sure. And what I did this year is I did have a New Year's resolution, and here was what it is: to have as much joy as I possibly could with my family and friends. That's my New Year's resolution. In all my years, I've never had a resolution that was not achievement based. So far, I'm on track. I actually got to touch a beluga whale with a trainer in January. So already on track for sure. So you want to figure out, if you have an issue. Number 2, this I think you either know or you don't. Not everything deserves perfection. So you'll notice that my slides have pictures, because if I put words on them, I spend hours and hours and hours on things like fonts, alignment, moving things over. So I know that I can't do that. So what really deserves perfection? And the answer is very few things. In my work with my group, I said, it's not about perfection. It's about the recovery. It's far more important that you understand how to recover than you get it even perfect the first time. Okay, number 3, external voices. So this is probably something that we can all relate to. We get labeled by other people. And these are things that really stick with us. So I remember I was on the bus in junior high. I have no idea who this person was. It's some faceless person in my memory, but they told me that I had a big nose. It was in 7th grade. At one point, I think my nose grew, and then my face grew a year later. I don't know what it was. But I walked around for a long time, kind of talking like this. So this is a person that I don't even know who it was. But it's a memory that stuck with. And by the way, I still remember. I'm over it. I think my nose is fine, right? And another thing, I was walking with my son because he had to come home from college to live with us during the pandemic, and we actually got much closer, which is really cool. We're walking around, and I said, you used to be so talkative, and why are you so quiet now? And he said, there was this girl in 8th grade who said, you talk too much, like in front of a whole bunch of people. And he said, at that point, I decided that I wasn't going to talk that much. And then he looks, this is like a 2-hour walk because this got kind of intense. And he said, oh my gosh, why would I let her impact who I am. So one of the things I'd like to do, I know we had this chat, is on labels. I think all of you can think about, hey, what labels are you carrying around from 8th grade? Do you still believe it? And instead of saying what labels are they, what I would like to see in the chat is, what one label would you really like to have? So for example, I like to pre-label myself. So I used to speak a lot more when I was in GE. I started speaking GE like twice a week. And I would always start with, especially as an executive, because executives in GE are not known for, approachability or whatever it is. So I'd say, I'm nice and I'm funny. And I say, I have to tell you I'm funny because it might not be obvious to you. It's obvious to me. What labels, so you can type this in your chat box, what labels would you like? So think about, what one thing would you like people to say about you? I can't see the chat right now, but hopefully you guys are chatting or writing something. Number 4, this is really important. Poison people. They do not help you at all. This is a term I coined in particular with interactions with one of my HR managers from my past. So if you're going to see a poison person, if even before you're kind of figuring out all the scenarios of what could happen. If he says this, I'll say that. If he says this, and you're preparing. And you can also, your body betrays you long before your mind does. So your body is already giving you like maybe butterflies in your stomach. But a poison person is truly defined in my vernacular that you go in and when you leave, you feel worse. There are actually people like that. So Oprah, excellent. And I love this whole averaging 5 people. I think I've already upgraded, but I think there are times in my life where I was truly the average of 5 suboptimal people. So if you go in and you feel worse, clearly this is a poison person. And as you get older, I think it is much easier actually to avoid these people. But when you're young, you're kind of at their whim. Getting the support that matters, right? So instead of, and we touched on this earlier, right? But how do you make sure that sometimes you have to be around poisonous people? Sometimes they're your boss or your HR manager, or they're hopefully not your advisor, but maybe your advisor's friend. It turns out external validation matters. So I'll blow up another myth, at least for me, which is it doesn't matter what other people think. Now, in essence, I think there's a good amount of truth in that, but also external validation matters. One of the classes I run, we talk about emotional intelligence, and there are certain types of people, maybe some engineers, right? So he says, the wife says to her husband, hey, I want you to tell me that you love me more often. And he said, hey, I told you on our wedding day, I'll let you know if it changes, So the reality is people do want to hear nice things. Now, here's the thing. I can't make somebody give me some kind of positive feedback, but I can throw out positive feedback. So it took me a long time to realize that I can't control what other people do. I can only control what I do. Super annoying, by the way. If other people would just act the way I wanted to, then my life would be perfect. No, my life is lived in my own head. So for me, I love the idea of, I'll talk to my mom. I talk to her every day. So I will certainly, I told her this before, but I'll tell her again. She was in my chat. She supported me through thick and thin. And I actually tell her very, very often that she was the best mom ever. Your inner critic. So this is one of your worst enemies. If I were to pick a poison person for all of you, this is probably who it would be, but you can't get away from yourself. So bummer. Okay, so you're imagining you're driving home. I wish I could stand up. I can't wait to actually see people, but so you're driving home and you have your best friend in the passenger seat, and you say, oh, I did the stupidest thing. Oh my gosh, it was so dumb. And your best friend says, you sure did. It was really stupid. And you're like, well, okay, I don't want to think about this anymore. Let's turn on the radio. And your best friend goes, no. Let's turn off the radio and talk about how dumb you were. And so at that point, if that's your best friend, we need to talk in real life. But what you want to do is you want to pull over to the side and kick him or her out the door, like right away, and then drive away and then live your life. But I think some of us have that person right here, and it's this little mini me telling me you're not good enough, or you were dumb for making mistakes, or whatever, your little mini me on your shoulder. And the problem is this thing won't go away. It's super glued on. And so you go in and maybe you come home to the people you love the most, and you're thinking, like when I have little kids, they talk to me about Barney, or I don't think Barney's a thing anymore, but it used to be this purple dinosaur. Oh, probably was for you, actually. Maybe you grew up with these things. And you're like, yeah, but I made a mistake, or I have lots of things to do. And then right before you're trying to go to bed, and you're like, I just want to go to sleep. And the mini me says, oh no, but don't you remember how dumb you were? Or you wake up in the middle of the night when you're older. When you're younger, you have trouble falling asleep. When you're older, you can fall asleep, no problem, but then you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep. So you've really got to work on your inner critic. So a couple of tips there: make sure to write things down. I always say, get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper. It's much more useful on a piece of paper than it is, in your mind. Obsessing is just a huge issue for perfectionists. You have to get in touch with how you treat yourself. Would you treat your best friend this way? And I think the answer is no, I wouldn't. So try to think of yourself as that, as your friend, as in that passenger seat. What would you do? 6, comparing yourselves. So we don't compare ourselves to one person. If we did, we might actually be okay. We compare ourselves typically to the very best of several people. And then we figure out how can we push those people together and become that. So I'm going to pick the best looking person, the most athletic person, the smartest person, the whatever it is. And I'm going to compare myself to each one of those separate individuals. Of course, that's not a thing, right? So I think if you're competitive, I've now learned that you actually have to compare. I have a lot of issues. That's not one of them. But I've kind of learned that some people, it's just part of their inherent DNA. Well, then pick a person. So you may not be as smart as somebody, for example, but you're nicer, you get more things done, you have more achievements. So compare yourself to one person versus many. It's a particularly insidious way to always think that you're less than. Okay, I'm going to see if I can see the chat on this. So get ready to chat here. I'm going to ask you a question. I'd like you to type in a number from 1 to 10. Okay. I want you to rate yourself on how smart you are. 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. And I'm going to see if I can see if there's any way for me to see this. Okay, so think about it. And but I should tell you, I already know the answer. So that's the tricky part. I already know the answer. Okay. So on your mark, get set, go. And let me just see. Oh, good. 10, 10, 8, 5. Okay. Seeing lots of numbers. 7.599. You need this talk. Just, I love you. You're awesome. Okay. Okay. So here, I have the answer. So here's the thing. Ready? You're a 10. And how do I know that? I am going to do a little comparison. So have you met the general public? When I think about how you rate yourself, every one of you thought of one person that might be smarter. I'm really asking you, think about who you are. You're a 10. I mean, this is really obvious, right? I hope. And I am often wrong, but I'm not wrong here. I know who I'm talking to. I know who's in this audience. The answer is you're a 10. Get that through your head. I was coaching a young woman, and she had certainly some self-esteem issues. And I was going through like, well, how would you rate yourself? And so I said, well, how would you rate yourself athletically? Because I thought this was a gimme. She had a full rowing scholarship for Division I Georgetown rowing. So I know the answer is 10, right? So that's what I should hear. She says she's a 7. And I'm like, okay, I don't even understand it. And she starts comparing herself to the Olympics. And what I want you to do is say, no. If you're going to compare yourself to the Olympic rower, why don't we compare yourself to, a broader population? I mean, that's amazing. Who gets to go to Georgetown on a full scholarship? So catch yourself when you're rating yourself and comparing yourself. You do need to build more confidence. This is another topic that I talk about a whole lot. When I was young, I thought confidence was being good at everything. And then many years later, I said, maybe it's really about being comfortable about what you're not good at. What I really come to conclude on confidence is that you have enough failures, enough cycles that that if you fail, you can come back again. I think for me, that is the missing ingredient for confidence. So if I look at all of you, if all of us on paper, it's incredibly intimidating, isn't it? I look at all these speakers and I'm thinking, wow, these women are so accomplished. A little bit of comparison. That's on paper, right? So how do we actually feel about ourselves? And so I realized over time that if I make a mistake and I'll beat myself up kind of over and over again, but I know I'll bounce back. And when you're younger, you don't know that you'll bounce back. And when you're older, you do. And that gives you much more confidence to try new things, to know things will be okay. So I think for me, that's the definition of some self-confidence. And I want to throw some formulas in because, why not? If self-confidence is much, much greater than your skills, then you're arrogant. If self-confidence is less than your skills, you miss opportunities, you feel bad about yourself, you have regrets. So obviously we don't like these formulas. However, here's a great formula. Self-confidence should be greater than or equal to your skills. Not greater than, but greater than your skills. Because you have to have the confidence to say, hey, I've never tried it, but I think I could like it. Or I've never tried it, but I think I could do it. Or me, when sometimes a client asks me something, if I can't do it, I'll tell them. But if they ask me something, I'm like, oh, maybe I could do that. Yeah, sure, I'll give that a try. So I don't know how to do it already. I don't have the skills already, but I believe that I can get to where I need to be. And it allows you to take chances, learn new things, sell yourself and be resilient. So that's a really good formula, I think, for self-confidence. And number 8, it is okay to fail, but let's admit it. It stinks to fail. When I think about my kids, and by the way, I started an imperfect moms club. I know many of you aren't moms, but perfectionism kicks in a real and profound way when you become a mother. It's not for everybody, but my experience, I thought that kids would do everything you said, I guess. I get the grade. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but props to my mom, I mean, wow. So this is super hard, it turns out. And then your kids have different personalities. And then what I learned with my daughter was not even minutely applicable for my son. So there's no learning. I mean, anyway, I can tell there are probably a few mothers going, and I'm scaring the rest of you off. I apologize. But then one of the most important things that I really wanted for my kids was resilience. Resilience to me is the number one skill you can have in life. It truly is the ability to bounce back. And why? Because in life, you're going to fall down. And sometimes it's because of because I trip and fall. It's all my fault. I finally admit, it's not someone else. I'm not a victim, and then sometimes life just hands you stuff through no fault of your own, sad stuff, bad stuff that happens to you. That's not your fault, not at all, but you're still down. Either way, you're down, but you got to get back up. And so that's the key, is to get up. And I've found that you can get up from quite a few things. What are my tips for that? I have 3 of them. 1, fast forward. Real quick. I remember being with my friend. We were stuck at the side of the road because I got a flat tire. And by the way, she had never gotten a flat tire, and it was like my 10th. I have no idea. She's like my same age. How do you not have a flat tire? So we're on a flat tire, and she's very scared. And it was at night, and it was in the winter, and I was calling somebody for help. And I said, Dana, just fast forward. In an hour, this is going to be done, and we're going to be in our hotel room, warm in our beds. Fast forward. So if you just ignore this part. So that really does tend to work. For now. That is the title of the book that I haven't finished. For now are the most important 2 words to add to a sentence. So I'm unhappy for now. I'm too busy for now. I'm super happy for now, because life isn't steady, right? So good times don't last, bad times don't last, unfortunately for the good times. So adding this sentence is really important. Like I said, when I was a mom, I remember for a full week, and no lie, my husband does the cooking. So my husband and my daughter had gone on vacation, and I was with my son, because we used to have to do split vacations because they went to different schools. And so I once fed my son lean cuisine 7 days in a row after trying to cook a chicken. So, and I brought my kids to McDonald's many nights in a row. So I ran out of bandwidth for now. And by the way, I still don't cook, but I can bring them to Jimmy John's. So here's my 3rd thing. This is a formula. My daughter came home. I realized this a long time ago. She came home in 4th grade. She was crying, like, I don't have any friends, which is heartbreaking. So what do? So here's the advice, I gave to her. First, cry. Don't go full on emote. And sometimes this is angry, whatever, punch a pillow. We did a whole bunch of things. But you do have to figure out, listen, acknowledge your feelings. Then I'm a real firm believer, then let's get a plan, right? So we wrote down all our kids, and we said, who are the athletic ones? Because she's athletic. Who are the smart ones? Who are the nice ones? And so we said, who's your possibility, right? Because in 4th grade, that's when they start to transition, and mean girl stuff comes, and blah, blah, blah. And then you watch The Office. Now for her, it wasn't The Office, it was Full House. So I probably should have used Full House, because I think that fits with your age group. So then you got to move on, right? So the professional way is you acknowledge your feelings, you do make a plan A, B, C, D, whatever you need, but then you've got to let it go and try to just move on, with your life. Okay, quick story before just one more slide. I think I'm even on time. I'm like pressing this timer to make sure that I'm doing okay. Okay. So you probably are gathering a little bit about me, but when my daughter was in high school, her name is Jill, by the way, my son's name is Jeff. So Jill, 6 months before she graduates, I say, I have a great gift for you. I don't know what she thinks is going to be, but I said, I'm going to write you a book of advice to take to college. And she said, yeah, no, you're not. She said, okay, you've had 18 years to give me advice. No, I don't want that. As you can probably tell, I love to give advice, very bummed. And she said, as a matter of fact, Mom, when you drop me off, you can give me only one piece of advice. So luckily I had 6 months. So fast forward 6 months, we're in Washington, D.C. I'm hugging her, I'm crying, she's happy. So, she said, okay, Mom, what's your piece of advice? And this is what I told her. Don't die. Everything else you can come back from. And it turns out she liked that advice. And I've heard her give that advice to her friends, like, well, you didn't die, right? And because, everything else you can come back from. So before I take some questions, and I think I'll have about 10 minutes for questions. You've got to find support. That's why I love the name of this conference. If you're not ready to deal with reality, by the way, it really depends, right? If you are in a great state of mind, you can take feedback, but we're not always ready for feedback. You've got to find supportive people who will tell you what you want to hear. That's correct. That's what I just told you. Sometimes you just need to find people who will tell you exactly what you want to hear. Like you are right and that person is evil, or whatever you need to hear, to kind of help you over. So, and maybe in a week, maybe not. But then you do need to find people who will tell you what you need to hear in a supportive way. I have different friends for each. Margaret is my friend who thinks I don't know if she always thinks I'm right, but she makes me think I'm right. My friend Vlatko, he has no capacity to tell me what I want to hear. He will only tell me what I need to hear. Be kind to yourself, for sure. And then certainly get professional help if you need it. I have sought out professional help for various things, and it can be very useful. Okay, so that's my presentation for that, and we can go to questions. And I think, Kathleen, I made it with 45 seconds to spare. Okay, maybe not, 35.
That's very impressive, Nancy. But thank you so much for such a great and inspiring talk. We're going to move now to the Q&A session. So to ask a question, please use the raise hand feature in the participant tab at the bottom of your screen, and then I'll call on you to ask a question. Alternatively, you can send me a private message with your question and I'll ask it for you. So to start off, we actually do have a question in the chat already from Ji Young. So the question is, how do I distinguish poisonous people and people I need to interact with to break my boundaries?
I don't quite understand the last part. I understand the first part. So how do we distinguish poison people and people I need to interact to break my boundaries? Could you do a little, I'll answer the first part while you just kind of maybe clarify that second part. I think poison people, it took me a long time, by the way, to figure out who these poison people are. And sometimes I dated them. I didn't marry one, thank goodness. But poison people really do. I mean, it's as simple as if you go in feeling, a 3 out of 10, and you come out feeling a 2, they're poison. I would say when you leave the meeting, here's another indicator. Do you say, do you think about the meeting? Like when I leave my friend Margaret, I think, what a wonderful time. When I leave a poison person, I start thinking, well, I said this and then they said that. What do I think that meant? So you start second guessing what the conversation meant. And for me, I can swirl it down to, make it all bad. But if you start questioning and reliving conversations that means there's probably not trust. And so there's a whole bunch of things like that, but those are more tangible indicators, but really they make you feel bad. And you really need to limit how you interact with them. If they are, so what do you do if there's somebody that you have to work with? You do limit that. I always have this theory that sometimes I have to employ somebody else. I can't, this person makes me feel bad. So how do I use another person to kind of interact with that? But then you have to seek help. You know, if your advisor is a problem, how do you seek other professors, probably other women professors, hope it's not a woman advisor, but, you know, other women to try to maybe even talk to that person, because I firmly believe you should talk to people. But not every conversation yields results. It does take two. So that's briefly what it is. What are your two favorite books related to this topic? Great presentation. Thank you for sharing. Let's see. I don't know. Oh, I'll tell you a couple of books that I thought were good. I don't know if it's necessarily about perfection. The first one's called, oh, you'll love this. It's called Emotional Alchemy. And I think it's Tara Goldman. And her husband is Dan Goldman, who wrote, who wrote Emotional Intelligence. So what she does is she talks about maladaptive behaviors that we develop, like perfectionism, like a fear of abandonment. And maladaptive means they worked at first, but they don't work anymore. So there are 12 in the book. By the way, this is when I was really deep in trying to figure out how to make myself happy. So I went to this retreat, and she was the speaker and her husband was there. Again, I'm going to share something really embarrassing. So there are 12 maladaptive behaviors. So I went up to Daniel Goldman, who is really kind of a star. And I was talking to her too. And I said, I really liked your book. I really did. I don't have any of these, but I really love your book. And then my husband, who's much more self-aware, goes, I think I have every one of these except for number 12, right? And so so now at this point, I realize, oh my gosh, I kept that book. I've given out probably more than 40 copies. So obviously that's a big one. I'm currently listening to, I don't read, as I told you, currently listening to, what's it called? Strength Finder 2.0. You know, I'm really into things like that, EQ, anything that helps me be aware. It's easier to ask for feedback or to figure it out through books instead of having somebody tell you. That hurts more, and sometimes that's not very helpful. So that's what I would say.
Well, thank you for that answer. We have a raised hand. So okay. Lisa, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Sorry, didn't know that was me. Thank you so much for your talk, Nancy. I have a question. I identified with many things you said, as I'm sure many of us did. I was wondering, what was the hardest part for you in the 8 steps that you listed? What did you find was the most troubling in recovering from perfectionism?
Probably being viewed, probably letting myself down, you know, lowering, and I hate to say this because when I say lowering my standards, I don't really, eventually looking back, I don't think I lowered my standards. So I'll give you the quickest example. When I got depressed, I mean, I was clinically, I'm like the happiest person, but I was clinically depressed. So terrible. I wouldn't wish it on the worst person. I went for counseling. I went on medication for 1.5 years. But after that, I really made a decision. So I was one of these super rising stars. I mean, I from 26, I just kept going up and up and up in GE. And I really had to decide between ego and happiness. So ego for me was this way and happiness was the other way. And so that was really hard. And then I remember, so I took my final job, which I had for 15 years, which I loved, which is just managing, you know, all the technical education, and I built it and all that. But it started off as a very small job and then I built it up. But I needed to recover actually. And I don't know that anyone really knew that. I remember driving to my driveway It was a sunny day. The weather was perfect. I stopped. I had run at lunch. I had started running to just help myself get better. And I said out loud in my car, I am happy. So that was the great part. The hardest part was seeing all my friends, because all my friends are executive, go to senior executive, go to vice president. So there's still a little bit of tug with ego, like, could I have been more? But I made the right choice. I picked my own happiness, and I had a fantastic job, a fantastic career, but I had to pick that. So I think that was probably the hardest. Okay, I feel that perfectionism has helped you get to where you've gotten in life. In other words, it's helped you achieve goals. The main takeaway message for me was that learning to live with imperfection is fundamental to help us deal with our feelings and emotions and how we perceive what happens in our lives. Is that right? Could you elaborate on that? Yeah, I mean, you know, all of your behaviors have served you well to a certain extent, right? But perfectionism taken too far, you go crazy. Right. So it's just, if it works for you, I guess I'll let you know, but you can do whatever you want. But I've just, I talk to thousands of people. I did, especially in my career, thousands of people a year. And I mostly listen, even though I've been talking the whole time. And I've heard countless stories, and perfectionism at some point starts to damage you. I think it's really important not to think of it as lowering your standards. I think it is that not everything deserves perfectionism. How about that? There's no such thing as a perfect mom, as it turns out. So, what really deserves my time? Because your life becomes this incredibly hard not soft boundary, hard boundary. I have time for this. How do I want to spend my time? Is it cleaning the dishes before I go to bed, or is it cuddling with my kid watching Barney? That's a hard choice, right? And so yeah, and I'll be at a table, I think, after this. So if anyone wants to join me. Do you think corporate America promotes perfection? Yes. How do you move up in a company without perfectionism? It probably takes a little bit. You can actually do it without perfectionism. That's not the problem. You just need to know to achieve the right things. When I think about to-do list, you have to have a to-don't list. Another thing I talk about. To-don't list is the hardest thing. You have to know what are the 3 things I need to do this year in corporate America, right? Where in GE in particular, who hires perfectionists. That's how I know everyone's a perfectionist in GE. Because they'll work and work until they pass out, right? So what are the 3 things I have to do? And then what are the things I don't have to do? And it turns out I started to become an expert at that the last 15 years because I did everything. I mean, everything. And I had to do everything perfectly. And I'm like, turns out I only have to do these 3 things really, really, really well. I don't have to do this. I don't know why they think I have to, or why I think I have to. So it really comes down to what I call brutal prioritization. And that way you can succeed in corporate America without perfectionism. Perfectionism to its extreme is frowned upon because you can't get stuff done. So yeah, there's this tenuous thing. It's a great question. I now think I should write a pitch on it, a presentation on it. I love this question. But there's a balancing act.
Okay, that's all the time we have for questions, unfortunately. So let's virtually thank Nancy one more time. I'll say, if you're unable to ask your questions or if you have follow-up questions, Nancy will be continuing this discussion at her breakout table. So please feel free to visit her there. So speaking of, we will now move on to the breakout session. So when you exit Zoom, you can go back to the GatherTown browser and click on the re-enter space. The breakout discussion will be held in the room below the keynote auditorium. So we will reconvene in the breakout discussion room in GatherTown in 15 minutes. Speakers and Illinois Grad Suite committee members, yes, I just saw this in the chat. Please stay on the Zoom call so we can briefly take a photo before heading to the breakout session. All right, thank you all for joining.
Okay, I think I stopped sharing.
Yep, we can see just you now.
That was the easiest transition I have done, so that was nice.
You finished up questions perfectly. It was great.
When I wasn't going to do it, but then when I read the script last night and realized that you were going to, you said, you're at 2 minutes up, I set it's very hard, right? Because in real life, you actually have a clock typically in the meeting room, but.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that all the speakers in the committee is here, let's do, I'm going to take a quick picture. So I'm going to take 2 pictures. One is just for our record. And then the second one is one that I plan on posting on social media to advertise our conference. So if anyone is uncomfortable with that, for the second picture, feel free to shut off your video. Okay.
Are you able to see everyone on your screen in one?
No,
No.
it's 2 screens. You have to take the 2 screens separately.
If someone has a computer with an i7, you can change the settings so that you can view up to 49 people.
Yeah, I can take the picture and prove it if you want. I have everyone on my screen that I can see.
Oh,
So
sure. So make sure you take 2.
okay. All right, I'll do a count of 3 so everyone's ready. Okay, ready?
Oh.
1, 2, 3. Awesome. So that was the first one. And then anyone who doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't want their picture posted on social media, feel free to leave now. But if not, I will count to 3 again and we'll take a second one. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. I have all of 2 photos. So thank you guys so much. And I believe we can head to GatherTown. Leave that up to you, Hannah, to direct people. But I think it's GatherTown to the networking.
Yeah, so if you just close Zoom and then you navigate back to your internet browser, you should be able to re-enter there. So just go to your GatherTown tab.
Question for you.
Yeah.
There's someone in the help room that has their mic on, but their name is Pixel 3 XL. I'm kind of wondering if it's a Zoom bomber or something. I messaged them and they haven't responded.
Okay.
I don't know if I should kick him out or.
Oh, you could just kick him out.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if they're not responding.
Yeah, their mic's on, but they're not saying anything.
Yeah, I would just kick them out.
Okay.
Okay.